Hi everybody, here I am. So I did create this tutorial at the urging of Andrea and some other folks at UWM. And the interesting thing is I have been a center director. I have for for-profit and nonprofit. I've done lots of stuff, but ironically, I rarely had to do the work of budgeting and finance. So when I was asked to do this tutorial, I was like, well, I don't know that stuff. I didn't do that stuff. I worked with staff. I worked with children. I went to school to be a teacher, not to do this stuff. As I'm sure many of you are nodding saying, yep, me too. So when they asked me to do it, the upside is I had to learn all of this. And I am not a numbers person. I don't balance my own checkbook very well, as my husband will attest to. So when I was asked to do this, I had to do a lot of research. I had to talk to a lot of people to figure it out and understand it myself. So now I feel like I have a good handle on the business part or the finance part of running a child care program. And I think I can explain it fairly well, which is then I created the tutorial for you. As a side thing, I was watching a webinar or a video today, a TEDx video, if any of you watch TED videos, by a guy named Tony Wagner. And his video was about play to passion to purpose. And as he was talking, he was all about, innovation, which those of you who know me know I'm all about technology. So that part was what grabbed me. But as he was talking about play to purpose to passion, I was thinking about, the play part. That's how come most of us have gotten into early childhood, is we love to be around young children. We love to play. We love their energy and their enthusiasm. That's why we're here, right? And then out of that, we sort of grow this passion for how important early childhood is in those years and the brain development and all of that. So the passion sort of grows, and then that comes to our purpose, which for me, my purpose has always been, I want to make a difference. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. I want to make a difference. I want to have an impact on this world. So what does all of that have to do with finance? I can play, I can have passion, and I can have purpose. Why do I have to care about the money? Well, as you're all aware, the money is what keeps us alive. It keeps us moving in our program. In your home, you have to have, some idea of how much money you're going to make and how much money you're going to spend. As you can get control of that, I have learned over time, as you can learn to control the money, then you can make better decisions and you can be real purposeful in, I want this for these children. I want to make a difference for them, but I need a little bit of money anyway to make that happen. And so I need to learn how to control my money. Andrea, you have a poll to pop up there?
I do. And so the poll is, hopefully everybody can see this, do you manage your money or does your money manage you? And what you need to do is just to select one of those two things, and we get to watch the votes come in. And we'll wait just a minute to make sure everybody's had a chance to do that. So far, 75% you manage your money.
Yay!
Not bad. Got a few more votes to come in, though. It does look like we lost one or two people because a storm blew through somewhere. I'm not sure where she was, and now she's logged off. So interesting. Yeah, there's something moving. It's probably moving north from Madison.
Yep, toward Green Bay.
Yeah.
It's thundering pretty loud out there.
Sorry. Okay, so there's the results. Not bad. Actually quite good.
So I can't see the result.
Oh, sorry. So
That's okay.
76% say I do, and 24% say it manages me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really awesome that most of you feel like you do manage your money. So you are, aware of the money that comes in and how you spend it. I so often still, to this day, I wonder where my paycheck went. Any of you ever wonder, where did it go? And so I did finally, as I was working on this tutorial, I did sit down one month and I actually did track my own spending just to see where does my money go. And there were some surprises in it, and some not so surprising things on where my money goes. So I'm going to close the webcam. So I should be gone now. And I'm going to open up the tutorial. And my goal here for tonight is really, I gotta get rid of this, is really to show you how to use this tutorial that I created. Hopefully it all does spell out for you well what you need to do. When you first log in, which at the end Andrea will show you how to get to this web page through the WECA web page, but when you first log in, this is the screen you'll see. This is the welcome screen. And so when you see this and you see my face there, you'll know you're at the right place. And then I have 3 tabs across the top. The first one you'll see does not have the drop-down menu. So read this first tab. I wanted to make that real simple so you know this is the page you should read first. And then as you can see, you just scroll down. I have a video here. There's a welcome video here. You could just click on that arrow and watch my real short video welcoming you. Then I have an overview of what is financial practices and why it's important. Andrea, you have another poll here. Do you want to do that poll now with the
Sure.
star rating one?
Sure. So the next question, just to learn a little bit more about our audience, is to ask if you're participating in Youngstar, what Youngstar level is your program? Oh, you guys are fast. 80% voted.
Wow,
wait
that is
one more
quick.
second. Yeah. All right, 85%. So it looks like 36% 2-star, 32% 3-star, and 32% participating or not sure. And actually, I should have had not yet rated in there as an option. So.
Okay, so not yet rated 2-star and 3-star.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Well, then that's the perfect audience for this tutorial because you have some knowledge. Now, although when I first started this, it does have a Youngstar focus to it, to the tutorial. Certainly, even if you're not doing Youngstar, it's still really valuable for the quality of your program to have a handle on your finances. So hopefully you'll find this tutorial really helpful either way. So there's a video here. I'm going to click on it and see if it opens. I'm not going to show you the video, but then again, so then you would click on the arrow and watch this tutorial. And then when that's done, you can just close out of it. You'll see there's a couple different times, and I will try to point it out throughout the tutorial when something opens in a separate window and when it's still within the same window. So in this case, you can see I have 2 tabs up here. So I can just close this one, and it brings me right back here. So I have some more stuff on here about why finance or how finance affects the quality of your program. And one more thing to view here. I think this is an article to read. Let me open it. You click, here's the article. So you'll see up here that this article doesn't open in a separate window. It's still all the same place. So what you want to do to get out of here and not get out of the whole program, I'm sure it happens to me all the time when I just close it and then I ended up closing the whole thing. So in this case, you just want to hit the back arrow and that'll bring you back to where you were. And then I have some self-reflection, just some things for you to think about before you move forward, some questions to ask yourself and get a handle in your own mind about how do you feel about finances? How are things going with you in your finances in your center? or your program. So once you've read through all of that and you're ready to just jump in, and I would suggest when you're ready to really jump into the numbers that you have some paper, have a pencil, or preferably a pencil, a calculator. If you have last year's taxes, anything that's related to your finances, together and ready here for you, so you're not like back and forth. And then if you were a group center, you'd click on this one, but you are all family providers, so you'll click on this one. And then we start with the line item budget. Now the interesting thing for me is I didn't even quite, believe it or not, understand clearly what a budget was. So now I get that a budget is, it's a projection, it's a guess, it's your best guess about how much money you think is going to come in next year, let's say in 2014 or 2015. How much money do you think you're going to bring in to your business? And how much money do you think you're going to spend in your business? And then we break it out by where do you think the money will come from. Some will come from tuition, some will come from the food program, wherever your money comes from. And then what do you spend it on? And we break that out too. Do you spend it on food? Do you spend it on toys? What do you spend it on? But a budget is just your best guess. It's not what actually happens. That was a big thing for me to wrap my brain around, that that's what a budget was, your best guess. So I kind of have this overlying theme throughout here that the finances are really the foundation of your business. Now I'm going to keep talking about business. I know that when we talk about play, passion, and purpose, it really is about children, but tonight we're really focusing on your business. And most family programs that end up closing, it's because of the finances, and it's because they don't run the business. I talk to a lot of providers who are awesome at taking care of children, but not at taking care of the business, because that's not what we're here for. But the truth is, we have to have a strong business in order to really take care of children well. So moving on with this line item budget, all of this part talks about that, and again, you can read that. I'm not really going to read this to you. I just want to give you a sense of what's here. I do have, so there's possible income and possible expenses, right? Where does money potentially come from? So I created this spicy node, which is a website that you can look at if you want, if you're into, remember I'm into technology, so this is fun for me. I look at income and some possible, you can click on this income word, and here are some possibilities of where your income might come from. The parent fees, that would include tuition. Do you get some W-2 funds or Wisconsin Shares money? Do you charge any activity fees like field trips? Do you charge for field trips? Do you charge a supply fee? Do you charge any other kinds of fees? If you just type in the chat area, what fees do you charge? I would be curious to know. So Andrea, can I see that? See their answers?
You can't. I'm not seeing anything yet, but of course it takes people a minute to type in and then hit send.
So my question is, what do you charge for any activity fees? And what do you charge for?
Enrollment fees.
Yeah, like an enrollment fee, and is that a one-time fee? Is that a yearly fee?
And then several no's.
So you might want to think about what kind of activity fees might make sense to charge. Again, food program.
Here's a few more: field trips, registration fees, late fees, enrollment fees.
Oh, right, late fees. Those are fees that you charge, and you should track that as income. And then when I was at a group center, we charged a late fee, and we had some families who were, perpetually late. So they, I got in lots of money with that late fees. And so I started setting that money aside, and I created a new line item budget with the late fee money, and I used that as like perks for the teachers. I would buy them candy bars or whatever. So what do you do with the late fee money? Does it just go into the great big pot of other money? You might have grant income if you write for a grant. If you collaborate with a district or you collaborate with Head Start, you might have money coming in from them, and or fundraisers. So those are some possibilities of income, money coming in. But you know, there's also the opposite of that, is money going out. So what are some areas where money might go out? You can click on the expenses one and look at some of where does money go out. If you have a vehicle that's part of your business that you use for business purposes, that's money going out. Professional services, this is like if you hire a lawyer or accountant, somebody like that you pay to come and help you with your business. Any home expenses, your accountant can help you with that. Employer expenses, this is if you have an employee. Type in the chat area yes if you have employees who work for you. So I have a sense of how many of you have employees.
Okay. Yes. No, no, no. Another no. I sometimes hire my children for special projects, says somebody.
There you go. Do you pay? And you should pay them for that.
And then lots more no's. So.
Okay, so it sounds like more of you do not have separate employees, because that's a whole nother thing to manage in your business if you do have separate employees. Quality improvement plans, for those of you who are on Youngstar, any quality improvement plan is a way to spend some money. And professional expenses. Now this webinar is not costing you any money, but you probably attend some kind of conferences and things that you spend money on. And then you may have noticed, I go back to the home screen, this shared expenses. Now these are things like your mortgage, because only part of your house is used for the business, right? And so that means part of your vehicle insurance, a part of the house repairs, a part of the house depreciation. So these are all shared expenses between your personal life and your business life. Are there questions out there about this part?
The only question we have so far, which I think you'll cover in record keeping, but I think this is probably a common question, is my biggest problem is having an easy tracking method, and time is a factor. Do you have any suggestions for a simple format?
Yes, and we will get to that. And I do have a couple, so hopefully. So I'm going to move on. Again, remember, just as an ease, because I hate it when I close out of a program. There's not two tabs open up here, so I know don't hit this X because everything will close. So you just hit the back button to go back to where we were. This is where we were. So then I also have, these are the directions on how to walk yourself through that if you want to look at that again. I also do have it as a PDF file, so you can open this up as well and see similar listed this way if this is easier for you. And there's a lot more here than is on that website. So this is a document you can just open up and print. All right, and then we start with the budget. So hopefully you're ready. You're like, Angel, get on with it. So here we are with the budget. We have this template I'm looking. It's way down here. So you can read through all of this. And way down here where it says download this file, I have two of them here you'll note. This one is an estimated expenses for family, that's you, a sample, and this one is a template. So the sample has numbers in it to give you an idea. So you just answer these questions. I pay myself how much per month as a salary. You multiply that by 12, which comes to $8,400 a year. So that's how much you would make a year if you paid yourself $700 a month. Now hopefully you are paying yourself. It is best practice in family providers. Tom Coplin will tell you you should pay yourself every month as an expense. So how many of you do that? How many of you pay yourself?
Yeah, you could either just raise your hand if you want,
Yeah,
or type into the chat. I forget about that.
Yeah, raise your hand would be a quick, easy one. So say, yep, I pay myself.
Not on a regular basis, no.
It doesn't count if you pay yourself whatever's left.
Susan said, I never thought of it that way. And then several yeses, too. And someone's not sure what you mean by pay yourself.
Well, in this case, this person's paying themselves $700 a month. So you really are two different people at the same time. You are your own employer. You know, I talk to Kelly Matthews a lot, and who is the guru, in my opinion, on family child care in Wisconsin. And she talks all the time about that you have hired yourself. So you should pay yourself a salary because you are your own employee. So you have to sort of put on that employer hat. I am the business and I am the director, and now my director, me, needs to pay my teacher, me, and pay yourself some money. And how much can you afford to pay yourself? So that's what that is. So I'm glad to hear a few of you do. I would really encourage all of you to figure this out, and maybe by the time you do the whole webinar, the whole tutorial, you'll understand and you'll be able to pay yourself. So I'm going to go back. So that was the sample one, so you could get an idea of what what am I supposed to write here? Then over here is a template, and you'll see on my screen, my computer requires me to save this as a document because it's a Word document. So for me, I have to save as, and I have to save it someplace. Save it, and it says I can't open it. There. And for me, I have to enable the editing. I don't know if you need to do that on your computer, but if you do. So now this is a document that's saved. You can save it on your computer. What I suggest, and it depends on how computer savvy you are, what I would suggest is printing this and getting a pencil and filling in these numbers with a pencil. That's my suggestion. But if you're computer savvy and you like computers, you can type in all of this. You can type in numbers, how much you want to pay yourself. So, ask yourself, how much do you contribute to your IRA retirement? If you don't contribute anything, that's fine. Put 0. How much do you pay for your house? How much do you pay for your phone? How much do you pay for your electricity or heat and energy? So, how much do you pay for all this stuff in your home? We tell you how much to multiply that by. Get your calculator and then fill this in, fill that number in over here. So, and Kelly had created these documents, and I just think they're beautiful documents. So you'll see you'll end up with a dollar amount right here for your annual salary. And next to it, it says A1, and A2, and A3D, and A3A, and A3. See those? So those numbers will become important later. So this is the first sheet, Part A, okay? I'm going to close that document. Don't save what I wrote. Once you have that, if you're confused on some of the questions on there, we do have this document that tells you, so what exactly is tuition? What exactly is salary? What are children's supplies? What counts as food? What are toys, and how are toys different from children's supplies? So this document helps you with that. Huh. Are you seeing a black screen?
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there you go.
Storms. Oh. I don't know what that is. That's never happened to my computer before. But we're moving down anyway. So we're going to look at budget. Again, I have a sample budget, and a template budget, but in essence it looks like this, and that A1 from that previous document, whatever number you put in A1 goes right here in salary. Find A6. You know what this reminds me of is filling out tax documents, where it tells you where to find these various numbers. So these are the codes, the numbers go in here. And I'm going to show you the sample one, the one that's already done. So we have filled this part out. How many infants do you have and what do you charge? How many toddlers do you have and what do you charge? This is how you figure out your income from tuition. If you have any fees you charge by how many children equals how much money. So basically you just walk yourself down this document and fill in these numbers. Again, this is one I would suggest you print. Now all these numbers down here came from that previous document that was called A. This one is B. Here's the template one where you can fill this out. This is going to be the same thing where you have to save it to your computer. So that same idea where you save it. And then we go to C. And it's sort of that same thing. We're just moving numbers around and trying to get them in an order that makes sense to us. I'll open this one. So then this is your actual budget. When you did the work and found the numbers on the first two documents, A and B, and now you're going to transfer those numbers to here. And so for tuition, it comes from document B, part B, number 1. Here's B number 2, because that one was about income. And then same with the stuff that came. If you have employer, just a couple of you have employer expenses. Most of you didn't, so this will just stay blank. And then your expenses. Now what we did is we sort of guessed on what we believe family providers spend their money on. Now, you may or may not have all of these kinds of expenses. You might have different expenses. Can you think of any expenses that, ways you spend money that's not listed here? Could you type it in the chat area?
Can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there are any expenses that you have that you track that are not listed here.
Cleaning supplies.
Mm. I was thinking something like stamps, but I guess stamps could go under office supplies and paper and ink.
Activity fees, continuing education for childcare, licensing and accreditation fees.
Oh, good.
Accountant fees, property maintenance, field trip expenses, children's gifts.
Yep, those are all great ones. So those are all ones that you certainly could be tracking. And if it's something you spend your money on and you want to know, so how much am I spending on this particular thing? I could give you an example. Again, most of my experience is in group center, but I think you'll be able to relate to this. I noticed one month that we were going through a whole lot of paper towels, more than a typical month. So I had to do a little digging and figure out first how much were we spending on paper towels, and then, in past months versus this month, and then figure out, okay, why? So I separated out paper towels from all my other paper products just so I could just see the paper towels. And it turns out I had hired a new teacher in the toddler room, and she had just put out a basket of the paper towels, and the kids could take as many as they needed, which a 2-year-old thinks they need a whole lot of them. So we went through paper towels very quickly. But that, again, it was my budget that helped me figure out that we were, in fact, going through paper towels very quickly. And then on the bottom of this tab, now remember we're on the line item budget tab for family. I do have at the bottom then questions that you can consider. So these are just things for you to think about in what you do. Even this, does my budget project a profit or a loss? So remember, your budget is how much money's coming in and how much money's going out. And you'll either see at the end, I have a profit, I have money left over, or I broke even, I spent everything that came in, or I don't bring in enough, I spend more than I make. And whatever the answer is, are you okay with that? You know, that's something for you to really think about. Depending on your situation, you might be okay with this month or this year I'm going to lose money because I built an addition or because I bought a new van. And you might be okay with that. So there are times when it might be okay to lose money, as long as you're not losing it every year, as your accountant will tell you as well. And then I clarify here a little bit what Youngstar requires as far as a line item budget, for those of you who are interested in Youngstar and what they want you to do. So we scroll all the way back to the top. And remember, so that was the family provider line item budget. Are there questions out there just related to the line item budgets? So the beauty, I think,
doesn't look like it.
What, Andrea?
Sorry, it doesn't look like it, but I know it takes a few minutes.
Awesome.
So if you type anything in, I will
jump in. Yep.
Jump in, yeah.
So I think you'll find those templates really helpful. It is something you have to just make yourself, if you're like me and you're not really a numbers person, you really would rather play with Play-Doh and sand. That is me too. But if you just force yourself, you know, for 1 hour, say I'm going to spend 1 hour, and I'm just going to plug in these numbers on the documents on just this page, just the line item budget tab, I think you'll find it's not quite as hard. I hope. I hope the feedback you give us later is that it wasn't as hard as I thought. Okay, so I'm moving on from the line item budget. So our budget is about what we think is going to happen. To record keeping.
I do have one question before you move on, and that is, what's this? So this is pretty general, but a good question. What's the benefit of paying myself a salary?
What's the benefit?
In terms of on your taxes.
Well, on your taxes, it is a tax write-off. I mean, it's twofold. On your personal taxes, you have to claim it as income, but on your business taxes, it's a tax deduction. So I would assume if you talk to your accountant, they will tell you it's better to pay yourself, especially if there's money left over. Because now I own my own small business personally, and my accountant, he tells me to spend every penny. So some months I do have to pay myself. I have money left over, and I need to pay myself so that the business isn't making too much money, because otherwise I get hit big on the business side of taxes. Now, personally, I have to claim it as income, but I also, there's lots of websites out there, and your accountant could help you figure out what's the tax rate. So if I pay myself, I also have to pay attention to the tax rate that I fall in personally. So I would encourage you to talk more with your accountant about that and what makes the most sense to pay yourself. But in essence, you're working really, really hard every day to work with children. You're giving everything you've got. You deserve a paycheck. So if nothing else, pay yourself because you deserve it.
And then here's another question. I don't know if you're going to get to this later, though, Angel. Maybe. Where do you put that payment on the Schedule C?
We might get to that when we get into the tax thing. So, Andrea, can you hang on to that question?
Yes.
Help me remember. So I'm going to move on to record keeping. Now, record keeping is kind of the glue that holds all of this together. You can have, in order to get all these numbers, as somebody had asked, what's a good system for record keeping? So I give my accountant literally a shoebox of receipts, and I say, here they are. But over the last few years, I have learned for my own business to have, I just use envelopes, quite honestly, folks. I use envelopes. For me personally, I have an envelope that's office supplies. I have an envelope that's, so the receipts go in there. I have an envelope that's for the receipts for travel and mileage. I have one for any hotels, because I do a lot of training and speaking around the state. So I put those receipts in separate envelopes. I get that it's very simple, but I've asked my accountant, and he's fine with it that way. And for me, what I used to do is just throw all of them in a shoebox, and then at 2 days before I'm supposed to meet with my accountant, I sit down and I try to separate them out into different categories. So I've learned over time, rather than doing it that way, I have envelopes in a file folder, and when I put the receipt away, I do have this belief of touch it once. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but it's something I learned when I went to a How to Organize Yourself training, and it really hit home for me about the touch it once. And since then, I really have tried to hold true to that. So what that means is, when you have a receipt in your hand, deal with it right now. Touch it once. Put it where it belongs once, versus putting it in a pile, and then that pile piles up. And now you have this huge stack of papers that need filing, whether it's receipts or documents or whatever. You have this huge, to be filed pile, and you don't want to tackle it because it's gotten so big and it's going to take forever. So I have learned to touch it once. When it's in my hand, I put it where it belongs the first time. I don't make a pile. So I have found that works well for me. The envelope system works well for me. Here is one. I saw this picture, and I actually thought about doing this. I haven't gotten there yet, though. So a file folder with, instead of envelopes, it's just separate tabs. So I kind of like that because it's a quick drop the receipt in the right tab. This one is probably useful too. Now for me, in my business, it doesn't help me to track by the month, so I don't put all my January receipts in one place and all my February, because that doesn't work for me. It's easier to put all of my office supplies in one and all of my travel expenses in another one. But you have to figure out what makes more sense for you and how you do it. There isn't a right or wrong way to do it, as long as it makes sense to you. I did find this cool video. I'm not going to show it to you, but you can come back and watch it later, on how to organize a file drawer. It was interesting, so you might want to watch it. It was only a few minutes long. I have a PDF here, which is really, I'm going to try to open it. It's a PowerPoint. Yeah, my computer wouldn't open it earlier either, which is funny, but I saved it. I think this is it. So I have this PowerPoint. Looks like this on record keeping. What I did is I looked through, I didn't read cover to cover, but I read quite a bit of this Tom Coplin stuff, and then I created a PowerPoint for you to kind of talk about what he talks about in his talks regarding record keeping. So this is his stuff. So I encourage you to look through that. And then another big piece, the biggest piece of record keeping is really about tracking, right? You have to track it all. Now, unfortunately, I am not the expert when it comes to receipts. And this receipt sample, again, I'm not going to read this to you. You can read through this. It's something you probably have to read through clearly or slowly, but it's something Kelly Matthews created for me. And so she's kind of targeted this target receipt. that has maybe some personal stuff on it, but also some business stuff on it. So she has P if it's personal, B if it's business, S if it's shared stuff. And then she also has C if it's for cleaning supplies, T if it's a toy, O if it's office. So then she takes that receipt and she codes it. You can see that she has coded it for herself right here. And in the end, the business supplies, 151 of it. Shared stuff, toys shared is this. This is personal. So that later when you go on and either you or your accountant tries to really separate out for your budget, how much did you spend? It's helpful to have this done. Again, it's time consuming. It's when do I do that, right? And if you go stick with the touch it once theory, you do it when you unpack the groceries or unpack the bags. Sit down right then and quickly run through this and mark it. Then it's done. I have learned the hard way. I'm sure some of you also have learned the hard way. I do have on here, then, I'm going to open this. This is a tracking of income and expenses. So each month, you want to write down in here, there's a blank document in here too. You want to write down how much money came in for tuition this month, and each month. And so how much totally came in, which is your E1 number. Now this is actual, okay, so that's the big word to hear. We're up to D, part D. And this is the actual income, not what you thought you were going to bring in. Remember, the budget was how much you thought you were going to bring in. So maybe you thought you were bringing in $40,000, but in the end, this one only brought in $29,400. So this is an actual expenditures and income. And I would encourage you to do this every month religiously. For me, I put it on my calendar on June 30th today, which I did do this today, and I filled out just my numbers. I just typed in a number here. It's written on my calendar to do it so that I don't forget to do it. And it takes, me maybe 15 minutes to do this and just type in the number. I like to type stuff, but again, you could print this and look back at your receipts, grab all your receipts and how much was coded for children, how much was coded for food, and fill in the numbers right away so that at the end of the year you have this. And so then this actual sheet, this document at the end of, say, 2014, when you're ready to work on your budget for 2015, these numbers are going to be really helpful because in 2014 you know how much you brought in. So then on 2015 you could guess how much you think you're going to bring in. You could use that same exact number, or maybe you know you're going to increase your enrollment by a couple kids, or maybe you know a family is moving so that might decrease a little bit. Maybe you're going to increase some fees and so this is going to go up. But this column here at the end of 2014 will really help you do a best guess for what will happen in 2015 on your budget. I hope this is making sense to you. So that's the tracking of income and expenses. This is my sample. This is the template that's blank that you can fill out. It's actually this document. So again, you could print this and type in handwrite in the numbers to make it easier. And then, as you know, for tax purposes, I believe, and the food program requires that you track meals. Now, maybe you already have a good system for tracking meals. So what I'm going to tell you is, if that's true, if you have a system that's working for you, stick with the system that's working for you. Now, for the rest of you who are like, no, I don't know how to track meals, I haven't done it well, here's a template in here that might help you track the meals. So it's the child's name, the child's date of birth, and then it's breakfast, morning snack, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, and evening snack on Monday. So you just have to put a little X there if they ate. This is a template. It's just a Word document, so you'll be able to, maybe you never offer an evening snack because you're not open that late. Kudos to you. No, kudos to you who are open that late. So you can play around with this on what meals you actually offer, and then that's how you can keep track of it. So, and then this is 1 week at a time. So the template shows 1 week. Okay, so this is a good one, but again, if you have something that you already use, stick with what you've got. And then now the next part of tracking is tracking your hours worked in the home. Now this was one I've had a lot of conversations with providers about, and how do you know and how do you track the hours you work in the home when children are not present? The hours you work when they are there is easy. But are you tracking the hours? So how many of you, raise your hand, how many of you are tracking the hours that you work on your business when children are not present?
Ooh, lots of hands. Wow.
Oh, good. And so are you tracking them on a calendar, or are you tracking them on just some piece of paper? I encourage a calendar. I know that there are some programs out there for providers that offer tracking systems, so that's helpful as well. It's really important that you track that.
So notebook, lots of calendars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would think a calendar would be the easiest. That's where I track all my stuff too, is on my calendar. So here's just a sample of what it could look like if you don't have any system right now for tracking your work hours when children are not around. Here's just a simple way to do it, to keep track of those hours. And then once again, I have questions at the very bottom, questions for you to consider, things just for you to think about and ponder and decide, and then what Youngstar requires.
Somebody else uses a large format planner. That's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
And someone has suggested that the Youngstar Toolkit is awesome. And I think what you mean, Sharon, is that the CCRNR in Western Dairyland created this toolkit that comes in a little box, and I know that the Youngstar technical consultants were handing those out. And yeah, that's a terrific organizing kit. It's just a small Rubbermaid container, and it's got all of the files lined up, and they've pre-labeled them for you to help keep you organized. So, yeah.
Oh, is that free of charge?
It is. So this was I think it was last year that DCF was able to purchase those, and I think, I don't know if they're still handing those out to new people, but this was last year.
Wow, that's awesome. Write that down if you haven't gotten one of them from your local CCRNR.
That's your technical consultant, yeah.
Or your technical consultant, right? Great. Okay, so we have done the line item budget and record keeping. I hope I answered a little bit the question the person asked about how to keep track of all this stuff. And it really somewhat comes down to diligence and just telling yourself you're going to do it and just doing it. You know, it's like getting up and exercising. I'm just going to do it. The next one is budget review.
Well, and so before you go on, here's a specific question about this. So how do you track cleaning time when your daycare's in your home? I clean for my family. How do I separate it?
Maybe somebody out there has a better solution, because I'm not a provider, but what my instincts tell me is when you're cleaning the space that is targeted for the child care business. So obviously when you're cleaning your bedroom, that's your private personal space, but any space that is targeted for your business, I would count as time cleaning. I get that it might be your living room and your family hangs out there, but that's also where your business is, and for your business it needs to stay organized and cleaned. So any space that's targeted for business, I would count. If there's somebody out there who has a different idea, oh, please share.
That's a good question. It's a percentage of your time, is what Diane says.
Okay.
You know, that's something that we can send an email to Kelly and ask her for a specific response to that I can send to you afterwards.
Yeah, it would make sense, but I mean, I don't want to speculate. What would make sense for, like in my own home, a percentage of my home is my business. And so it would make sense that that same percentage then is cleaning. That's the percentage that is, you know, utilities. So it would make sense that that you stick with that same percentage. But yeah, I think we should ask Kelly just to clarify. I don't want to steer you wrong out there.
One person responded that she cleans the kitchen after the kids leave and picks up the living room after they leave, etc. So.
And then she counts that time.
Mm-hmm. And just back to the toolkits again, because there's a little more information here. Thank you. So Sharon says the toolkits are available statewide, and if anyone's interested, they should visit the Child Care Partnership website. They can be ordered. And Sharon, what I wonder is if are they free or can they purchase them from your website? They're available for purchase. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm going to move on to budget review. Now, this is actually, in my opinion, I'm not a numbers person, but the budget review is actually a little fun, as strange as that sounds, because it's interesting now to really sit down and look at all those numbers. You've figured out the numbers. That's the hard part, is, you know, plugging in the numbers. But now once they're there and you just look at them, it's actually quite interesting, I find. So maybe you'll find the same thing. So the budget review is just that. It's sitting down and reviewing your actual expenses to your projected expenses. So you thought you were going to spend, you know, $2,000 on toys, and you ended up spending $3,000 on toys. So why the difference? And to look back at your receipts and say, oh yeah, I bought that one really expensive thing that month, or oh, what was I thinking? How did I spend so much money? So it's interesting in that respect to just really look at, what did I spend and why was I right or wrong, and pat yourself on the back when you projected well and figure out why when you projected wrong. So the variance, the fancy word variance, is really just the difference between what you thought you were going to bring in or spend and what you actually brought in or spent, and why. So I'm going to, we'll look at this one. I didn't think I needed to save it. So on this document, this is the sample one, so now we're up to Part E. And over here, just in this income one, you're going to take this number. Remember, these are coming from other documents. So you thought, this person thought they were going to bring in $27,000. They actually brought in $29,000. So, I wonder what happened there. How come $2,000 difference? Here they thought they were going to bring in $250 in fees, actually brought in $300 in fees. So again, what happened there? So this is the food program and any additional income. I don't know how this person's tracking additional income. Maybe it's field trips. The thing I have found myself is the more specific I can be in the category column, the more helpful it is for me. But there's no tried and true, you have to have this. So you decide what you want to track, what makes sense to you. Maybe this additional income, you just want to lump everything else together, but maybe you really do want to separate it out. So you decide how you want to do this. You can see in this column they thought they were going to bring in $25 and they actually brought in $110. Excuse me. So this, again, this is the document I think in the end that's just interesting. This person has no employees, so this is all empty. And then over here, thought she was going to pay herself this much, and she actually did. thought she was going to spend $1,000, and she's pretty close. The variance is the difference, so $13 difference. So looking at these and saying, this is what I thought, this is what I did, is just interesting. And then what Youngstar is asking you to do is fill out this document, great, but also to look at excuse me, look at a few of these lines and really talk to yourself about what happened there. Look at this, taxes went up. Can you plan better for that next year? The food actually went up. So what are you going to do? Are you going to try to stick to the $3,000 next year and maybe serve less expensive food, or are you okay that it went up and so next year you're going to budget at $3,200, or maybe you're even going to jump to $3,500 next year? You know, Youngstar really wants you to look at these numbers. Don't just fill them out and say done and show your TC this document and say, see, I filled it out. We want you to really look at some of the numbers. You don't have to do every line, but look at the ones that have a bigger variance and say why, and really think about that. And what are you going to do next year differently, so that you can, because the ultimate goal here is that your budget, your estimated, remember this word really should say budgeted, not estimated, although they're the same thing. But your budgeted column should be really close to your actual. So the goal is that those become as close as possible for you. Then there's no surprises. You know, you don't run out of money. So that's the budget review. And then this is the simple one. So then here's some questions to consider and ask yourself, and then the Youngstar requirements. So although this part of the process of budgeting and finance is fairly short, it's actually the most important, and I will just say the most fun part of budgeting is looking at the numbers when it's all said and done. Are there questions about the budget review?
No, not right now. We do have a poll about budgets. We have a couple polls. I don't know if you want to ask them. Actually, I was just
looking at this. Ask a question.
Here, I'll launch one right now.
Great.
So we're just wondering, are you currently using a line item budget? Yes, no, not sure. All right, close to 80% voted, so 67% no and 33% yes, and a couple not sure.
Okay. So more do not use a line item budget. I hope that you're seeing the value that it might be. You know, I guess one thing I'm curious is why not? We should have asked that as a poll question. Why not use a line item budget? Is it that you just aren't comfortable with it, weren't sure where to start? I can tell you, you know, we have a lot of categories in our line item budget, but you don't have to start there. You can start with just a few things that you want to track. You know, let's just track the toys and the food. And maybe that's all you want to track initially. And then later you'll be like, oh, now I'm going to start tracking the office supplies too, and see how much money we actually spend in office supplies. And slowly add categories. You don't have to start with 100 categories or even 10. You could just start with 3 or 4 and then add categories as you go along.
Well, so here's a question. I'm not quite sure. Is this something that's required to do by Youngstar? And I think you mean, Deborah, the line item budget.
And it is required by Youngstar starting at 3 stars. I'm going to jump here, way at the bottom, under the business. You are required to have an ongoing annual line item budget for 3, 4, and 5 stars. So 2-star programs do not need the line item budget, but when you're ready to move to a 3-star, you do have to have a line item budget. The interesting thing with Youngstar is they don't tell you how many categories you need to have. So they just want you to have line items. So again, I think if you start with 3 or 4 line items, you know, where does your money come in? So you have maybe 3 main categories. You have your tuition, you have the food program, and then everything else, how money comes in. And then how money goes out, maybe again, you only have 3 or 4. It goes out with toys or materials, consumables, you know, crayons and markers, maybe cleaning supplies, food, I don't know, just a handful of them. But if you're ready to try to move on to being a 3-star, yes, you need a line item budget.
Well, and a couple of responses in terms of why not. Time is a major factor.
Yeah.
And somebody says, mine fluctuate so much year to year, so I don't make a budget.
I'd be curious to talk more with that person. The one-on-one counseling you're going to talk about later might help.
I am, yeah.
Because the goal would be that it wouldn't fluctuate too much from year to year. I do understand, you know, when it's a group center, the bigger the center, 1 or 2 children's attendance or enrollment doesn't affect the budget. But if you're just talking 8 children or, you know, roughly 8 children, 1 or 2 children I know can affect your budget hugely. And those are things that are hard to project. I do know I'm working on the 2.0 for the next step of budgeting for group centers. And in there, we suggest that you project your enrollment at 85%. So when you're making the budget, we encourage you not to make a budget based on 100% enrollment, because you all know that you're not going to have, most of the time, right, in a year's time, you're not going to have 100%. You're not 100% full every day all year long. So we say project at 85%. So, you know, a kid and a half not there every day. And then create a budget based on that. So don't, you know, 6.5 children instead of 8 or something like that. Then maybe your budget would be more accurate. Or you know, so 85% is what we suggest. Okay, we have one last taxes component. So back to the Youngstar question. All of these are required for 3 stars. So you do need to have a line item budget for 3 stars. You do need to have some sort of record keeping that you can say, here's my system for keeping track of my papers and food and work time when children are not present. Those are the things they want to see how you track that. The budget review, again, they're going to want to see that you compare the budgeted column to the actual column. And then the last thing for 3 stars that they're going to want to see is taxes, that you do the paperwork for taxes. And know that TCs are not looking at, they're not judging your final tax amount if you come up and you didn't make any money. That's not what it's about. What they just want to see is that you are in fact filing taxes. So you can black out your Social Security number or your tax ID number, because that is all confidential information. We totally understand that. There's a cute little video here about how to find it, or why it's important to find a tax preparer, so you can watch that. And then what I put on here are some of if you are a provider and you're a sole proprietor, then here are the tax documents that they'll be looking for to see from you. In case you weren't sure, I didn't want to just list them. I wanted you to be able to see what it looks like, because I'm a visual learner, so that's how I see. So although this is the 2009 version, it's the 1040. So it looks like this. They want to see this document. Okay? And note on this one that all of this stuff has been whited out. And that's not what they want to see anyway. They want to see that this column has been filled out. I'll just remind you that I don't have 2 windows open, so I know I got to go back. This is page 2 of that same document. Here's page 1 of the Schedule C. And some of this you can see has been whited out. And somebody asked a question about income in Schedule C. It looks like, I don't know, I'm not an accountant. If somebody out there has an answer about this, where income, I'm thinking this is the income. But I don't fill out my own tax documents. I have a tax accountant who does my taxes. Is there somebody out there who can verify that this number 1 is in fact where you would list your income if you paid yourself? I think this is gross income
yet.
right there.
Lynn says yes. That's where the income would go. Thank you, Lynn.
I think so too. And again, talk to an accountant. Tax documents are, you know, as you all know, taxes have gotten so confusing. I can't fill my own out because they're too confusing. And then here's one other tax document. I believe this is the one if you have an employee. Most providers' time space percentages between 25 and 30, so this document probably helps you figure that out.
Well, until somebody else says no, it's income from parent fees. So.
Oh, income from fees, not income like I paid myself. Okay. Then I don't know the answer, and again, I think you should talk to an accountant or a tax preparer. This one is expenses for business use of your home. It's the 8829. So this is another document, a tax document that you will want to fill out. And this one's just a sample.
I think that this might be in the resources section of this in the frequently asked questions, but is there, someone's asking, is there a website where we can find accountants or that you would recommend?
Because it's statewide, I don't have it, but we might have something in the questions. We'll look. You know, because you just want the local, somebody you trust. And what I did to find an accountant, I was new to town, and I just talked to lots of people about who do you have do your taxes. And over time, you know, there were a couple names that kept rising to the top, and so then I just picked one, and I met with him and talked with him about what I wanted to do with my business. And, you know, then I just picked the one I felt comfortable with. I have had accountants that in the end I didn't feel comfortable with, and they weren't hearing where it was I wanted to go with my business and how I wanted to do things. They wanted to keep telling me how to run my business, and so I found a different accountant. I did see, so I wanted to point out here, so if you're an LLC, I don't know if any of you are LLCs, but then you fill out quarterly reports. That's what these are. And then there's the federal tax returns. Again, you can look at those. We have here then questions to consider, things to ask yourself, and then what Youngstar requires, what they want to see from you. So again, all of these are the categories for 3-star. So if you're moving from 2 to 3, and then once you're a 3-star, it is required for 3, 4, and 5 stars. And then the last tab we have here is the frequently asked questions and resources. Now, I honestly will tell you this tab is a little overwhelming, quite honestly, but it's in a website, so you can come back to it as you want. Here's how you get your registry certificate, but you know, what if I didn't keep records from last year? Where can I get additional support? And here's some places. Andrea's going to tell you about some more. Where can I get information on record keeping? How do I get Tom Coplin's stuff? He has great stuff. Where can I get more support? The one thing to note, this is an interesting one. Is anyone looking to verify my budget is accurate? What I will encourage you, and I say this all the time in trainings, don't do this because Youngstar says or because your TC says. Do this budgeting for you and for your business and for the success of your business, not because somebody else is telling you to. So why would you want to spend time? You know, I keep hearing, we don't have time. I don't have time. I get that. So if you're going to sit down and plug in numbers, then why would you not make them accurate? Because to make it helpful for you so that you can then make more plans about if you want to build a new playground, how are you going to afford it? If you want to buy some large equipment, how can you afford it? How can you fit it into a budget? So are they going to look and make sure your numbers are accurate? Likely not. But if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right. Everything is here. Yes, everything is here on this tutorial. I think everything for 3-star is on this tutorial. So there's more questions here with lots of other websites you can go to get additional information. So questions out there?
Well, so here's a suggestion, which I think is a good one, is that if you're looking for a tax, when you're looking for a tax preparer, you should ask them if they're experienced working with child care providers. And I don't feel that we can recommend a specific accountant. There are often resources available at conferences and people who are in that business that do sessions at conferences. I know for a fact that there will be somebody at the WECA conference, and I know that there was somebody at the Family Child Care Conference, and so that's a place to look as well for information.
Yes. Perfect, perfect.
But not all accountants understand the business of family child care. You're right. Absolutely.
I agree. And, you know, so if, and there probably aren't many out there who do. So if you can't find a local one, I would think the next step would be, what about when people have a business in their home, you know, just a small business in your home? Does the accountant have experience with that? You know, as if they don't have the experience in family, it may be at just having a home business. Because again, I have a home business, and my accountant understands about writing off square footage and all of that. So are there questions?
Somebody says that Tom Coplin may have a few names also.
He might, yep.
Somebody's asking how you get on this page, and so I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes. But are there other general questions about taxes, record keeping, budgets?
So, yep, Andrea's going to show you how to get here, but note that it is a website, ultimately, and so you can come back to this as you want. If it was me, I would, you know, I would dedicate an hour to just this tab, and then I would probably walk away because that's enough with numbers for me for one day, and then come back when you have time and do the next tab. That's how I would do it, what works for me. You decide how it works for you. When I created the budget or the tutorial, my thought was that you would spend roughly 5-6 hours on it, just to give you an idea of, so how long is this all going to take me? So that's my thought. And if you are a family provider currently, and the beauty of this is, and you're thinking about moving to Group Center, you do have access to all the Group Center stuff too. Theirs just looks a little different than yours. All right.
Someone asks, how do you get a tax number?
I don't know. I don't know. For me, I just use my Social Security number. I had the option. I talked with my financial advisor about becoming an LLC and would that be beneficial to me, and that would have given me a tax number. but in the end I decided to just stay a sole proprietor, and I use my Social Security number.
Someone's responded, the IRS.
That would be my guess too, the IRS. Good luck with them.
I did want to clarify, somebody also followed up with another answer about the income on the tax statement.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody says it's all your income before taking out the expenses.
That's what that one Schedule C was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of how I read that document too. So I don't know, I would guess if you pay yourself, then it's on your own W-2 as a person, you know, as a personal tax document as income. And then in your business documents, you write it as an expense, because you're paying an employee, even though the employee is you. So for the business, it's an expense. For you personally, it's income. So then you would fill out personal tax documents. But again, talk to your accountant. They're invaluable.
And you guys are so helpful. You can go to irs.gov. It's easy to get a tax number. If you apply online, you'll receive it right away.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so, you know, webinars are great because we can all be in our own place, but the one thing you miss is that, you know, ability to talk to each other and answer questions. Now, I don't have all the answers, but I like to think that somewhere in this room, in this, you know, virtual room, we can come up with all the answers. So I'm glad that people out there feel comfortable enough to share what they know.
Mm-hmm. And is it safe to give parents your Social Security number?
No. Oh, but they need they want the tax write-off. You're right. So you'll want the tax ID number. See, you people are smart.
Yeah, not recommended. I don't think so. Yeah. Give them a W-10.
Give who the W-10?
I think Lynn means give the parents a W-10.
Oh, right.
It's the parents. Instead of the tax number, and use the IRS tax number on it.
Right. Yep. Instead of Social Security. Yeah, it is, you know, we're talking tonight all about your business, and you really do, as much as possible, want to separate your business from your personal life. So having a separate tax ID is probably best practice for your business.
Where do we get the W-10s to give out?
Now, I always got, when I was, my son went to child care and I was a director, we just gave out a document that we filled out. You know, it was just like a Word doc that said our name and the daycare's name and address and phone number and contact information. And then so-and-so, you know, Angel Stoddard paid $3,000 in 2014, you know, to our child care program, and then it had their tax ID number on it. And then I just gave that piece of paper to my accountant. So it wasn't an IRS form or any special tax document. It was just something they created.
So somebody just posted a link to a PDF. Thank you, Amber. It sounds like the IRS is the place to go. So, Megan, I suspect if you go to irs.gov, some of those questions you might find the answers to there. Tom Coplin's website as well. Tom is very open to. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Andrea.
I was just going to say, Tom is very open to answering questions. I was actually at a conference trying to interview him, and he got a call from a provider with a very specific question, and he interrupted our interview and took the call and took a few minutes to talk to somebody directly with a question. He said, I get calls all the time. So
yeah, Kelly has said that he'll reply to emails.
mm-hmm.
Even, I mean, he doesn't know you, but if you ask him a question, he'll reply to the email. It's awesome, you know, in this, to have, just to hear the sharing and the willingness to answer each other and help each other out. That's what it's all about. We really do need to kind of come together and help each other out in this, because it's confusing. And back to, you know, play, passion, and purpose. Most of us are not here because we like to run our own business. It's because we like to hang out with kids. So this is the hard part for us. Mm-hmm. So it's nice that we'll help, you know, we're helping each other out here.
Well, here's another suggestion. In the Minute Menu Kids Pro, it has W-10 forms you can print out for each parent for their taxes. I know that back when we were talking about tracking meal expenses, somebody suggested that they use the WECA online program. I assume that's the food program here.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody uses the Western Dairyland Kids Pro program. So,
oh, that's a new one. I haven't heard of that one.
Mm-hmm. Western Dairyland has a lot of resources, that's for sure.
Oh.
And also somebody suggested that you try and find a support group in your area to get some recommendations for tax preparers, and I thought that was a really good idea because there are a lot of support groups around the state that we know about. And your local CCRNR is a fabulous resource as well in terms of meetings that are going on in your area. And there are WECA affiliates in each area of the state. That's a potential resource for WECA members. And the Wisconsin Family Child Care Association is another great resource. Mm-hmm. So if you're hooked into any of those communities, then that can be, I think, an advantage. So I see 7:58 on my clock. If there aren't additional questions, then I will sort of take the controls back, so to speak, from Angel, and I just want to show you a couple of things, including how you get to this tutorial.
Okay, so I just want to thank everybody for hanging out tonight in the storm and spending some time working on, you know, your business. It's an important piece of what you do every day, so thank you.
Angel, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I think this is going to show you my screen. All right, so there's an opportunity that if you're interested, we'd love to hear from you, and that is to receive some one-on-one technical consultation. Obviously, if you're participating in Youngstar, you already have a technical consultant. We have a small group of sort of business experts, so to speak, and we have the opportunity for them to do some one-on-one technical consultation that is specific to your finances and to your business practices. And so what this means is that somebody would come to your program, come to your home, meet with you for probably 2 or 3 hours, and you would identify together some things that you might want to work on improving in your business. And so this is intended primarily for 2 or 3 star programs participating in Youngstar, and so those kinds of programs will get priority for this. That has to do somewhat with our funding, obviously. So I will be posting this application on the archive page of our website. We've got one page on our website that is just for webinar archives, and that's where we post the recording, and that's where I'll post the recording from tonight. And so you can access this PDF application there and submit it if you're interested. There's absolutely no cost, no obligation to you. If you just want some more information, I'm happy to talk more about it as well. This is the web page where you can access the online tutorial. And so I'm going to take you there if this follows the link. Or not. Or I'll go this way. You should see the WECA website. I hope you do. We've got a training page on our website that lists a lot of our trainings. On this right sidebar, you'll see there's the free online training Child Care Business Practices tutorial. And all you need to do is to register for this. It takes you to this page and you will enter your name and your email address and your county. Once you submit register, it sends us the information and you'll receive an automated email that gives you the link. And what I've done is I just put mine as a bookmark on my toolbar so that I can access it at any time. And so that's what